My girlfriend chose my brother over me, until I fought back. Before we begin the story, take a moment to support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your support means the world to our channel and helps us spread more shocking true stories to light. Now, let's get started. I never thought my life would unravel like this. Bags of my own belongings stuffed in a trash bags, my brother's smug laughter still ringing in my ears, and the woman I thought I'd spend my future with standing beside him, tossing me aside like yesterday's news. It started with a bang. Literally. I was in my apartment, minding my own business, when the door swung open with a force that rattled the frame. My older brother, Damon, strolled in like he owned the place, flashing that cocky grin that had haunted me since childhood. And then, right in front of my girlfriend, Sienna, he said it. He's a weakling. Ditch him tonight. I'll show you what a real man looks like. Sienna didn't scream. She didn't tell him to get out. No, she laughed. Then, as if that wasn't enough, she started grabbing my things, my clothes, my books, even my damn toothbrush, and tossing them out. Damon just stood there, watching, smirking. He didn't have to do anything. His words had already done the damage. Now, here I am, sitting in a dingy motel room at 3:47 a.m., staring at my phone. 21 missed calls. A flood of frantic texts from Sienna. Please, Parker, answer me. I should have seen this coming. The way she flipped her phone over whenever it lit up. The extra attention she gave to Damon at family dinners. Laughing too hard at his jokes, always angling herself towards him. The sudden curiosity about my work schedule. When I'd be home, when I wouldn't. 18 months I spent with Sienna. A lifetime with Damon. And I never thought I'd find myself here, homeless in the middle of the night, betrayed by them both. But I'm not going to be the victim in their story. I'm going to be the ending they never saw coming. The signs I ignored. Looking back, the warning signs were everywhere. I just didn't want to see them. Sienna and I met at New Year's Eve party last year. She was the kind of beautiful that made me second-guess my own reflection before every date. The kind of woman who made me feel lucky just to be standing next to her. But now, as I sit in this motel room, replaying the past 18 months, I realize there were cracks in the foundation long before everything collapsed. She was smart, a marketing degree, always glued to her phone, crafting the perfect Instagram captions. But sometimes when she looked at me, it was like she was surprised we were even together. Like I wasn't supposed to be good enough for her. Damon, my older brother, had been a fixture in my life for as long as I could remember. The golden child. 32 years old, built like an athlete, oozing confidence in that way that made people either worship him or want to punch him. I was always the latter. But he was still my brother, right? He worked in sales, drove a company car, and had that slick charm that made people believe whatever he said. Even when we were kids, he took whatever he wanted, my bike, my toys, my spot in the front seat. And every single time, he'd flash that same half smile and say, "Don't take it so hard, little bro." I should have known he'd come for something bigger someday. Last Thursday started like any other. I worked the morning shift at the factory, but we shut down early because of equipment problems. I texted Sienna to let her know I'd be home by 4 instead of 7. No response. Not unusual. She always blamed her messed up notifications. When I got home at 3:52 p.m., I heard voices coming from our bedroom. At first, I thought she was on the phone. Then, I heard laughter, his laughter. That same damn laugh from when we were kids, and he'd steal my things. I froze in the hallway, heart hammering in my chest. Parker's never going to get anywhere, Damon's voice carried through the door. He's been at the same place for 5 years. No ambition, no spine. And then Sienna. I know it's getting old. He's sweet, but her voice trailed off. Sweet, like a puppy, like something harmless. Then, her tone shifted, lower, softer. You need someone who can actually take care of you. Someone who knows what they're doing in life in bed. I should have kicked the door down right then. Should have burst in and caught them in the act. But instead, I just stood there, listening, processing the fact that they were talking about me like I was nothing. Finally, I pushed the door open. It wasn't even locked. Damon was sitting on my bed. He wasn't touching her, wasn't doing anything obvious. Somehow, that was worse. They were just comfortable. Sienna sat next to him, legs crossed, leaning toward him. His arms stretched across the headboard, my headboard. They looked up at me, not with guilt, but with annoyance. like I was the one interrupting something. What the hell is this? My voice came out higher than I wanted. Damon smirked. That same smirk. Hey, little bro thought you were working late? I swallowed hard. Equipment failure. Why are you in my bedroom? Sienna sighed like I was a child. We were just talking, Parker. About me. About how I have no spine. Damon stood up, towering over me. 4 inches taller. Always has been, always will be. Look, someone needed to tell her the truth. You've been dragging her down. I clenched my fists. Better like you? He laughed. She deserves better. I reminded him. He was engaged. To Meline, the woman he was supposed to marry in a few months. He shrugged. Meline understands how things work. We have an arrangement. Sienna stood too, arms crossed. Parker, this isn't working. It hasn't been for months. I looked at her. Really looked at her. 18 months meant nothing. So, instead of telling me, you talk to my brother? She threw her hands up. Because he actually listens. He understands what a woman needs. Damon stepped closer, putting a hand on my shoulder. You've always been like this, Parker. Comfortable with mediocrity. Content with scraps. Some guys are meant to follow, and some are meant to lead. I knocked his hand away. Get out of my apartment. Sienna laughed. She actually laughed. This is my apartment too. And actually, I think you should be the one to leave. My brain couldn't keep up. What? We're done, Parker. I'm not wasting any more time on someone going nowhere. I looked from her to Damon. Are you too? Damon smirked. That half smile I've hated my whole life. She needs a real man. I'm just pointing out the obvious. Something in me snapped. Not in the way where I threw a punch. That's what he wanted. No, something colder, clearer. For the first time, I saw them both exactly for what they were. How long? I asked. Sienna rolled her eyes. Nothing's happened yet. Yet, she went on, like she was explaining something obvious to a child. But Damien's right. You're never going to change. You're going to clock in and out of that factory for the next 30 years and call a life. Damon checked his Rolex, the one our Uncle Edwin got him for his 30th birthday. Look, man, this is awkward, but just pack your essentials and go. Give her some space. She's made her decision. I started grabbing my things, my laptop, some clothes, the framed photo of my parents. The whole time, they just watched, occasionally whispering to each other, occasionally laughing. When my arms were full, Sienna tossed 2 trash bags at me. Use these for the rest. I want your stuff gone by tomorrow. I didn't say a word, just filled the bags. As I reached the door, Damon called out. Hey, no hard feelings, right? You'll find someone more your speed. I left without looking back. Drove around for hours, aimless. Ended up on my buddy Mike's couch for the night. Rented a cheap motel room the next morning. That's when I found it, my old iPad. The one I stopped using months ago. The one still logged into my iCloud. The iCloud that Sienna's phone backed up to because she was too cheap to pay for storage. I wasn't expecting much. But then I saw them. The messages. And suddenly, I realized Sienna hadn't just betrayed me. Damon had been playing this game for months. He thought I was weak. Thought I'd just roll over and take it. He has no idea what I'm capable of. By this time next week, they'll both be begging me to pick up the phone. The truth they never wanted me to find. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't just sting, it changes you. I wasn't the same man I was 24 hours ago. I sat on the scratchy motel bed, staring at my old iPad, my fingers tightening around the edges. The screen glowed with everything they never wanted me to see. Sienna's messages, Damon's messages, and the biggest lie of all, nothing's happened yet. Bull. They've been talking for months. It started small, Damon casually asking how I was, Sienna venting about me, little complaints here and there. But then the tone shifted. The words got bolder. Flirting. Secret meetings while I was at work. Planning. I scrolled through the texts, my chest tightening with every line. Damon. Should have seen Parker's face when I got the promotion last year. Same look he had when I took his bike when we were kids. Sienna. Well, that's mean. He tries hard. Damon. Trying isn't the same as succeeding. Sienna. You're engaged, remember? Damon. Doesn't mean I can't show you what you're missing. What he'll never be. That was the moment it clicked. This wasn't about Sienna. It was never about her. This was about me. Damon wasn't in love with her. He didn't see her as anything more than a pawn in a game he'd been playing since we were kids. The game where he takes what's mine Not because he needs it, but because he can. And that's when I made my decision. They think I'm weak. Fine. Let's see how they handle it when I fight back. Planning the takedown. The next morning, I called in sick to work. 2 days. That's all I needed. 2 days to get my mind right and plan. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was surgery. A precise, calculated dissection of everything Damon held dear. Step 1. Gather evidence. I created a Google Drive folder, backing up every screenshot, every text, every detail. I needed proof, not just of what he'd done to me, but of who he really was. Because if I was going to burn him to the ground, I needed more than just a personal grudge. And then, buried in the messages, I found the one that pushed me over the edge. Damon, taking Sienna is just a bonus. Seeing Parker's face when he realizes he lost again, that's the real prize. Like taking candy from a baby. Or, in his case, a girlfriend from a loser. LMAO. That was it. I was done being Damon's loser. Step 2. Identify what he cared about most. Damon had 3 things he valued above everything else. His engagement to Melline. Their wedding was scheduled for next summer. Their engagement party in just 2 weeks. His career. He had a massive promotion lined up at Uncle Edwin's company, happening in just 3 weeks. His reputation. Damon had been the golden boy in our family since birth. The one everyone admired. The one who could do no wrong. To break someone completely, you don't go after what they have. You go after what they value. Step 3. Light the fuse. Taking everything from him. My first move was Melline. I texted her, pretending I needed help planning Damon's bachelor party. Thinking whiskey tasting or brewery tour. What do you think? She was surprised. Said she wasn't sure why I was still involving myself, considering what had happened with Sienna. I played dumb. She didn't push it. We met for coffee at that overpriced cafe she loved. The kind where they draw little hearts in the foam like it makes the drink taste better. When she arrived, she had that look. The one people get when they're about to say something painful but think they're doing you a favor. Damon told me about you and Sienna. She started. I'm really sorry, but he said it was mutual, that you two just grew apart. I nodded, let her talk. Let her feel safe. And then I pulled out my phone and handed it to her. That's not exactly what happened. She hesitated, then started scrolling. I watched her face shift, confusion, shock, then quiet devastation. She kept whispering, no, this has to be out of context. There's got to be more to it. I didn't say a word. Just let her keep reading. Finally, she looked up, hands shaking. Has he done this before? That's when I told her. About Jessica from college. About our cousin's friend at the lake house 2 summers ago. About his ex who mysteriously became interested in his best friend. A pattern. Melline didn't cry, didn't yell. She just took a deep breath and said, I need time to think. Unexpectedly, in that moment, I respected her. Tearing down his career. Uncle Edwin was trickier. He adored Damon, treated him like the son he never had. I needed to be careful. So, I called him up, asked if we could meet for career advice. Let him think I was finally showing ambition. We met at his country club. He ordered scotch, offered me one. I accepted, even though I hated the taste. I let him go through the usual, where do you see yourself in 5 years, speech before I steer the conversation. Are you worried about nepotism accusations with Damon's promotion? That got his attention. I mentioned that I'd heard rumors about how Damon secured the Northfield account. Said I was concerned his family. Edwin's expression hardened. What rumors? I slid my phone across the table. Screenshots of texts where Damon bragged about taking credit for his team's work. About using company resources for personal favors. Nothing illegal, but just murky enough to raise serious questions. By the time we left, Edwin was asking a lot more questions. The seed was planted. The beginning of the end. Thursday night was family dinner. Damon showed up late, eyes bloodshot, clothes wrinkled. He hugged Mom longer than usual, wouldn't look at me. His phone kept buzzing. Every time he checked it, his face got paler. Finally, he stepped outside to take a call. Through the kitchen window, I watched him pace, gesturing wildly. When he came back in, Mom asked if everything was okay. He forced a smile. Just work stuff. Nothing important. Then, he looked at me, like he knew something was wrong, but couldn't figure out what. I just smiled, rolled the dice for my turn in Monopoly. The next morning, my phone blew up. 5 a.m. First text from Sienna in over a week. We need to talk. Please call me. Deleted. 9:37 a.m. Text from Damon. Whatever you're doing, you need to stop. This isn't funny anymore. Screenshot. No response. 3:22 p.m. 6 missed calls from Damon. By 4 p.m., Mom texted. Do you know why Damon and Meline are taking a break? I smiled. Phase 1. Complete. Watching him fall apart. By Saturday morning, the cracks in Damon's perfect life had turned into full-blown fractures. I met Meline at a small diner near her apartment. She looked exhausted, hair pulled back, no makeup, eyes puffy from lack of sleep. She stirred her coffee in silence for a long time before finally saying, I confronted him. She told me how she had laid out all the evidence, every screenshot, every message. At first, Damon denied everything. Then, when she wouldn't back down, he changed tactics. It was just flirting, he told her. Nothing physical. When she pressed harder, when she refused to let him wiggle his way out of it, he admitted to one mistake with Sienna. One mistake? We both knew better. But Meline didn't yell, didn't cry. She just walked away, privately called off the engagement. She hadn't told their families yet. And when she looked at me across the diner table, her expression wasn't sadness. It was relief. You saved me, she said, from a lifetime of this. A lifetime of being lied to. For the first time in weeks, I felt something I hadn't expected. Closure. But Damon? Damon was spiraling. The messages keep coming. That afternoon, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. 3:22 p.m., 6 missed calls from Damon. 4 p.m., a text from Mom. Damon showed up drunk at the house. Dad had to drive him home. What is going on? 4:27 p.m., a message from Sienna. Please answer. I made a terrible mistake. He lied to me about everything. You weren't supposed to find out like that. He planned it that way. I didn't know. Please, Parker. I'm begging you. Too little, too late. I stared at the message for a long time. Felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction. Just emptiness where 18 months of feelings used to be. I put my phone down. Didn't reply. The final blow. Monday morning, Uncle Edwin called me into his office. I walked in, sat across from him, and watched as he steepled his fingers, his frown deep and thoughtful. I've been looking into Damon's accounts, he said finally. There are discrepancies. He explained how, while nothing Damon did was strictly illegal, he'd been inflating numbers, taking credit for work that wasn't his, and using company resources for personal projects. The promotion? Officially on hold. For the first time, Uncle Edwin wasn't talking about Damon like he was the golden boy. I always saw myself in him, he admitted. But now, I'm not sure what I'm seeing. For a brief moment, I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered Sienna laughing as she threw my things into trash bags. I remember Damon's smug smirk telling me I was weak. I stayed quiet. Sienna's world crumbles too. A few days later, I got a message from Sienna's roommate, Heather. Hey, I have some of your stuff. Want to meet? I met her at a park bench near her office during her lunch break. She handed me a TJ Maxx shopping bag with my favorite hoodie, some books, and a few random desk items. But then, as I was about to leave, she blurted out, She's been lying to you for months. I turned back. What do you mean? Heather hesitated, then sighed. Damon had been coming over since January. January, long before she ever pretended things weren't working. Long before I ever suspected a thing. She was planning to break up with you, Heather admitted. She just wanted to secure a better option first. And they laughed about you together. Parker, in your own apartment. I clenched my jaw, stayed silent. And then, the final blow, Damon ghosted her the second you left. Blocked her number. Told her it was just a game to prove he could take her from you. Heather looked genuinely confused. I don't get why you won't answer her calls. She really loved you. She just made a mistake. I stared at her. If someone threw your things into trash bags and laughed while doing it, would you take them back? Heather didn't have an answer for that. Before I left, she mentioned she was looking for a new roommate. Living with Sienna had become unbearable. I smirked. Good luck with that. A new beginning. That night was the first family dinner since everything exploded. Mom insisted we all needed to heal. Dad grilled those chicken skewers he thought were fancy, because he used wooden sticks instead of metal. Aunt Cheryl brought her famous potato salad that gave everyone heartburn, but no one had the heart to tell her. Damon didn't show up. When I asked where he was, Mom's face tightened, taking some time to reevaluate his choices. Translation? He lost everything. His promotion, his engagement, his golden child status. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one being overlooked. As I was leaving, Dad handed me an envelope. Inside was cash, enough for new furniture. I frowned. What's this? Dad sighed. It's long overdue. Sometimes parents realize too late which child actually needed the support. I tried to give it back. He wouldn't take it. It's not charity. It's an apology. For the first time, I didn't feel like the lesser son. The final message. The next morning, I unblocked Sienna's number, just to read her final message. I know you'll never forgive me. I wouldn't forgive me either. But losing you was the biggest mistake of my life. He never wanted me. He just wanted to hurt you. And I helped him. I have to live with that forever. I stared at the words for a long time. Felt nothing. Blocked her again. Took a deep breath. And finally, started unpacking my new apartment. The aftermath. Damon's life isn't ruined forever. Guys like him always land on their feet. He'll bounce back eventually. Find another job. Another woman to lie to. Another crowd to charm. But for once, he's actually facing consequences. He lost Meline. He lost his promotion. He lost the golden boy status. And Sienna? She lost what she thought was a backup plan. And then she lost what she actually had. Me? I lost an illusion. But I gained clarity. Moving forward. Yesterday, I ran into an old high school friend. The kind of guy who always thought Damon was God's gift to humanity. He asked, "So, how's your super successful brother doing these days?" I just smiled. He's going through some changes. Didn't elaborate. Didn't need to. For the first time in my life, I don't feel like the weaker brother. Because it turns out, the strongest people, they're not the ones who take whatever they want. They're the ones who know exactly when to stop giving. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more real-life family dramas. Let me know in the comments what you think about today's story. Was it fair or totally messed up? See you in the next one.